Good morning. We're heading out of the Biloxi Small Craft Harbor. We're gonna head south to Ship Island. Honestly, I'm not sure if Gulfport claims that, or Biloxi, or even Long Beach, but we're gonna go out there, thumb around the island a little bit, see if we can get on some fish. So we'll catch you out there. Look at that beauty. I don't know if you could zoom in enough to see how special that sunrise is. Just absolutely amazing. This is kind of looking over a Biloxi's skyline, I guess. We're going to make a pivot. We're going to head to Cat Island instead of Ship Island. If time allows us, we may swing over there. I'll show you Fort Massachusetts. That is actually located on Ship Island, but we'll have a good time regardless. See you out there. All right, I made it out here. I'm gonna toss out a rattle trap first and see if I can get a bite. As you can see, the waves are pretty tough right now. Just throwing out a rattle trap just to see if I can induce a bite. I'm throwing into the wind, which sometimes it makes it challenging. Typically when you have birds that surround you, a lot of time there's bait, and when there's bait, there's usually some type of predator fish. Throwing into the wind, it's best to keep the flight of your bait as flat as possible. These rattle traps, lipless baits, or whatever you want to call them, all you really need to do is just reel them in moderately slow. You know, there are tons of fast predator fish out here that can catch up to it, especially if you get into mackerels or bonitas. Try this gulp alive with a chartreuse head, white pearl body, just to see once again if we can get a bite. We are at the top of high tide, so the water and the wind is both going in the same direction. A lot of times it'll just make larger rollers, but today it is, like I said, just creating kind of a washing machine effect, which typically is not what it does. Nibble. I believe I'm going to put my live scope down. So I got it in perspective mode. In perspective mode, like I said, does a horizontal scan of the body of water you're looking at. So a good way to check where the current, how the current is flowing, is you can just put a jig in the water with some soft action and just hold it vertical, and you can see the lure is bending to my left, which means the current is running that way. The wind is blowing. The current is running north, which almost would indicate that we haven't fully got to high tide here. And the wind is blowing from the north, so they're kind of, that makes sense why the waves are piling up like they are. I'm going to shift my strategy. I'm going to get to the point of this island and see if the fish are on the front side of that point, and maybe waiting for bait fish. I think I'm going to run this trough right here, or actually this drop off. Goes from a 0 degree or 0 foot flat all the way to a 9. It's really probably 2 or 3 in here, but it does get shallow. So we'll see what we can churn up. Well, the wind has really picked up. The tide, like I said, the tide is fighting it. Wind is blowing probably 15 to 20 knots. And waves are probably 2 degrees right here inside this, the L of the island. I'm going to see if I can find a windbreak on the other side of the island, maybe over here. See if it calms the water a bit. Got some bird activity right here. Not a ton. Well, we're gonna head back to Biloxi and fish around the rock jetties just to see what's around. You know, I was really optimistic that Cat Island was really gonna produce today. Honestly, just didn't get a bite. I'm on my way in. I came across this tower here. I'm gonna see if I can get some triple tail. You never know what's gonna be around these towers. Alright, I am back in Biloxi. We're going to fish around these rock jetties just to see what we can get into. Like I said, the wind is coming out of the north, the current is coming in, so I'm hoping like these little cuts right here will push bait through. Fish on. Alright. First little flounder. Got off. In the state of Mississippi, flounder only have to be 12 inches. Is really blowing, which made, you know, offshore fishing a little bit more challenging, but we got the protection of the bow rivage here. flounder hit right there. Took my tail. I'm gonna try this white gulp here. You want to get it as close to the rocks, if you are hunting flounder anyway, you want to get it as close to the rocks as you can and just wait for like a hung feeling. Then you give it half a second, then set the hook. This is probably a larger flounder. It almost feels like you are hung on the rock. They will bed up against the rock, and then you set the hook, and probably 60% of the time it's a fish. The other percent of the time you might actually be hung up. Pretty decent fish. So, like I said, flounder in the state of Mississippi have to be 12 inches. This one is a little over 15. We're actually going to take this one home. Got him. It's another flounder. He may be big enough. We'll double check. But like I said, you may have saw it on camera that it just felt like I was hung there for a second. Not quite big enough. He's 11 inches. Like I said, the bait, you know, with the incoming tide, the water will push through these little cuts in the rock jetties and will push the bait through with it. The flounder typically, you know, of course, are flatfish that ambush from the bottom, so they'll just sit there and wait for those bait fish to come through. See the dolphins out there. They truly are majestic creatures. However, they will take your most prized fish right off your line. So, as I mentioned earlier, It's an amazing place to live. As you saw this morning, really choppy going out. The wind was coming out of the north, which was fighting with the tides. As you can see now, the wind is still blowing out of the north, but the tide has gone out with the wind and it's started to slick this out. But if you ever, feel like, you really just can't get out towards the islands or wherever, like, you can fish inshore and just have a great time. Have to tie another leader on. So I've got to retie again. So if you missed my other video on FG knot, this is it and live. To grab a hold of this braid in the wind. Not sure what happened there. I had my trolling motor on spotlight and tying the knot, and I looked up and I'm almost on the jetty. Jeez, it's crazy. Well, we're gonna call it a day. Absolutely beautiful as always on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Hope you have the opportunity to come down and visit. Today I was hoping to get out around Cat Island and maybe a venture over to Ship Island to go after some speckled trout today. However, the conditions weren't right for my boat. I've got a bay boat, and I probably could have toughed through it, but anyway, I fish to enjoy, right? I'm not trying to put myself in a suffering situation, especially when I have the opportunity to come inshore and get on some flounder. We did get 3 flounder, or 2 7/8. I count that one. That was right at the boat. 1 keeper. It is probably 9 o'clock in the morning. We left out at 6 and drove out to the island. It was probably 12 miles out and came back. So, in a short amount of time, I thought we did pretty well. As it relates to catching fish and getting off. Got hung up multiple times. You'll do that when you are chasing flounder on jetties. It's just part of the game, right? So, anyway, hope you enjoy. Take care.